Billionaire CEO Asher Kane was untouchable, until heartbreak left him sleeping on a leather couch and drinking midnight tea left by a mysterious cleaning woman. But when kindness becomes connection, what is he willing to risk? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kane International Holdings, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Asher Kane stood at the window of his corner office, his tall frame silhouetted against the city skyline. At 47, he was at the peak of his career, powerful, respected, and feared in equal measure. His perfectly tailored charcoal suit showed not a single wrinkle, despite the fact he had slept on his office couch again last night for the fourth month in a row. "Mr. Kane, your 9 o'clock is here," his assistant Meredith announced from the doorway. Asher nodded without turning around. "Give me 5 minutes." When the door closed, he allowed himself a moment of weakness. He rubbed his tired eyes and glanced at the leather couch against the wall. A folded blanket and pillow were neatly tucked behind it, his secret. No one knew he had been sleeping here since Claire had walked out 4 months ago, leaving nothing but a diamond ring on their dining table. No note, no explanation, just emptiness. Asher straightened his tie and put on the mask he wore so well. The ruthless businessman who never showed vulnerability. The man who didn't lose. "Send them in," he called out, settling into his chair. The day passed. In a blur of meetings, conference calls, and decisions that would make or break millions of dollars, Asher moved through it all with the precision and control that had made him legendary in business circles. But inside, a hollow feeling had taken root, growing larger with each passing day. By evening, most of the employees had gone home. The cleaning staff had arrived, moving quietly through the building like shadows. Asher barely noticed them. He was reviewing contract terms when his phone rang. "Asher, where have you been hiding?" The voice of Jackson Reed, his oldest friend and business partner, boomed through the speaker. "Working, Jackson, someone has to." Jackson laughed. "All work and no play makes Asher a dull boy. You need to get out of that office." "It's been 4 months since Claire—" "I don't want to discuss Claire." Asher cut him off sharply. Fine, but you can't hide in that office forever. Come have dinner with me and Patricia tonight. We're worried about you." Asher sighed. "I have work to finish. Another time." After hanging up, Asher leaned back in his chair. Everyone wanted him to move on, as if his broken engagement was nothing more than a business deal gone wrong. They didn't understand that. Claire had been his plan for the future, a future he had carefully mapped out like everything else in his life. Hours passed. The office grew quiet. Most of the cleaning staff had finished their work and gone home. Asher checked his watch, 11:30 p.m. He should sleep, but the thought of lying on the couch staring at the ceiling held no appeal. At precisely 11:42 p.m., there was a soft knock at his door. Asher frowned. Everyone should be gone by now. "Come." "In?" he called out cautiously. The door opened slightly, but no one entered. Curious, Asher stood and walked over. When he pulled it open wider, he found only an empty hallway and a steaming cup of tea on the small table beside his door. Asher stared at it in confusion. This had happened before, several times over the past weeks. A cup of tea, always at the same time, always when he was alone in the office. At first, he'd thought it was Meredith trying to care for him, but she left promptly at 6 every evening. He picked up the cup, inhaling the soothing aroma. The gesture was so simple, yet strangely comforting. Like someone had noticed his late nights. Someone cared. But who? The next morning, Asher arrived early as usual, finding his assistant already at her desk. "Meredith, has anyone been asking about my working hours?" he questioned. She looked up, surprised. "No, sir. Is something wrong?" "Have you noticed anyone from the cleaning staff coming to my office around midnight?" Meredith shook her head. "I wouldn't know, sir. I'm not here that late. Should I ask security to check the cameras?" "No," Asher said quickly. For some reason, he didn't want to expose his mysterious tea-bearer. "It's nothing important." That night, Asher deliberately stayed, late again. At 11:35, he turned off the lights in his office, but left the door slightly ajar. He positioned himself where he could see out without being easily noticed. At 11:40, he heard soft footsteps and the gentle squeak of what sounded like a cleaning cart. Then, right on schedule, a woman appeared. She was dressed in a grey cleaning uniform, her brown hair pulled back in a loose bun with strands escaping around her face. She looked to be in her early 40s with kind eyes and a gentle way of moving. In her hands was a cup of tea. Asher watched as she carefully placed it on the small table, the same way she must have done many nights before. Just as she turned to leave, he stepped forward, pushing the door open completely. "Why do you bring me tea?" he asked quietly. The woman jumped slightly, obviously startled. She turned to face him, and for a moment Asher saw something flicker across her face. Embarrassment, perhaps. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kane. I didn't mean to disturb you," she said, her voice soft but not timid. "You didn't answer my question," he pressed. She met his gaze directly. "I figured even heartbreak needs something warm." Asher felt as if she'd slapped him. "How do you know I'm—" She shrugged gently. "Men who sleep in suits usually aren't just working late." He should have been offended. He should have reminded her of who he was, of the line she had crossed. Instead, he felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. For 4 months, he'd maintained a perfect facade. And here was this woman, someone who cleaned his office, someone whose name he didn't even know, who had seen right through him. "What's your name?" he asked. Lena Drew." "And how long have you known I've been sleeping here, Lena?" "About 3 months," she admitted. "I've been bringing the tea for 6 weeks." Asher didn't know what to say. He was used to commanding rooms full of the most powerful executives in the country. Yet standing here with this cleaning woman who had shown him a simple kindness, words failed him. "My mother used to make tea when I couldn't sleep," he finally said, not knowing why he was sharing this. Lena nodded. "Tea helps. But so does talking, if you ever need that." With that, she turned and continued down the hallway with her cart, leaving Asher staring after her, the cup of tea growing cool in his hands. The next night, Asher found himself watching the clock as 11:40 approached. When he heard the now familiar sound of the cleaning cart, he stepped out of his office. Lena didn't seem surprised to see him. "Good evening, Mr. Kane," she said, reaching into her cart for the tea she had prepared. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I know." She handed him the cup. "But sometimes small kindnesses matter." Instead of returning to his office, Asher found himself asking, "Do you have a minute to sit?" If she was surprised, she didn't show it. "Just finished this floor." "So yes." They sat in the small break room down the hall. It felt strange to Asher. He never used this room. It was for staff, not the CEO. Yet here he was, sitting across from a woman who cleaned his building, feeling more at ease than he had in months. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Almost 3 years now," Lena replied. "Night shift mostly." "Dessous. You like it?" She smiled slightly. "It pays the bills, and I like the quiet. Gives me time to think." "What do you think about?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Lena looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether to give him a real answer. "Live music, my husband sometimes." "Is he?" "He passed away 5 years ago, cancer." Her voice was steady, but Asher could hear the pain beneath the words. "He was a jazz saxophonist, played at the Blue Room downtown." "I'm sorry," Asher said. "Meaning it. We had 15 good years," Lena said, "more than some get." They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their tea. Asher found it oddly comforting, this quiet conversation with a stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all. "Your fiancée," Lena said carefully. "The one in the society pages with you." "She left?" Asher tensed. "Yes." He expected to feel anger at the personal question, but instead he just felt tired. 4 months ago, no warning." "That's rough," Lena said simply. "The board doesn't know I've been staying here," Asher admitted. "They'd see it as a weakness." "Heartbreak isn't weakness, Mr. Kane. It's just being human." The words hung in the air between them. For years, Asher had built his reputation on being more than human, being untouchable, undefeatable. And in the span of one evening, this woman had seen through all of it. "Call me Asher," he said. "Please." Lena nodded, a small smile touching her lips. Asher then. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Asher would work late, and at 11:42, Lena would arrive with tea. Sometimes they would talk for only a few minutes. Other nights, their conversations stretched longer. He learned that she had a small apartment across town, that she loved old jazz records, and that she read voraciously, mostly history and biography. She didn't complain about her life or circumstances, though Asher could tell things weren't easy for her. In turn, he found himself sharing things he rarely discussed with anyone, stories about his childhood, his difficult relationship with his father, the pressure he felt to always succeed. He even told her about Claire, about the confusion and hurt he still carried. "She never gave me a reason," he confessed one night. "Just left, after 2 years together. Sometimes people leave because they're afraid of staying," Lena said thoughtfully, "afraid of what they might find out about themselves." Asher found her perspective refreshing. She didn't flatter him or tell him what he wanted to hear like so many people in his life did. One night in late October, Asher was in the middle of a major crisis. A deal in Asia was falling apart, and he had been on calls all day trying to salvage it. By the time 11:42 rolled around, he was frustrated and on edge. When Lena knocked softly, he barked, "Not now!" She left without a word, and immediately Asher regretted his tone. He hurried to the door, but she was already gone. The cup of tea sat on the small table, steam rising from it as always. The next night, he made a point to be waiting when she arrived. "I'm sorry about yesterday," he said before she could speak. Lena shook her head. "No need to apologize. Bad days happen. Still, I shouldn't have snapped at you." "True," she agreed with a small smile. "But I forgive you." They settled into their usual spots in the break room. Asher noticed that Lena looked tired, more so than usual. "Long day?" he asked. "My second job had me working extra hours," she explained. "The diner where I work mornings was short-staffed." Asher was surprised. "You work 2 jobs?" "Most of us do," she said simply. "One job rarely pays enough." He felt a strange guilt wash over him. Here he was, one of the wealthiest men in the city, while the woman who had shown him such kindness worked herself to exhaustion just to get by. "I could help," he offered impulsively. "I could get you a better position here, something that pays more." Lena looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Is that what you think I want from you, Asher? A job upgrade?" "No, I didn't mean... I'm good at what I do," she said firmly. "I'm not looking for charity or favors." "That's not what I meant," Asher backtracked, realizing he had offended her. "I just thought..." "I know what you thought," Lena said, her voice gentle but firm. "But this," she gestured between them, "whatever it is, it works because we're just 2 people talking. Not the CEO and the cleaning lady, just Asher and Lena." Asher nodded slowly, understanding what she meant. Their late-night conversations had become a refuge precisely because they existed outside the normal hierarchies of his world. "You're right," he admitted. "I'm sorry." As November began, Asher realized something had changed within him. He found himself looking forward to those late-night conversations more than anything else in his day. He started asking Lena about books she had mentioned, listening to jazz albums she recommended, and for the first time in 4 months, he wasn't thinking about Claire anymore. "You seem different lately," Jackson commented during a lunch meeting. "Less intense. Are you finally getting over Claire?" Asher shrugged. "Maybe I'm just getting perspective." "Well, whatever it is, the board has noticed. They're pleased." Jackson leaned in closer. "Though there are some rumors going around that you've been spending nights at the office." "People talk, Asher." Asher felt a flicker of unease. "I work late sometimes. You know how it is." "Sure, but..." Jackson's phone rang, interrupting them. "Sorry, need to take this, but we'll talk more later." That night, when Lena arrived with the tea, Asher felt a strange tension. Their easy comfort was still there, but now there was something else, an awareness that had been building between them for weeks. "You know," Lena said as they sat together, "when I first started bringing you tea, I thought you might fire me for overstepping." Asher smiled. "I probably would have a few months ago." "What changed?" He looked at her, really looked at her, at the kindness in her eyes. the strength in her posture, the quiet dignity she carried. "I did," he admitted. "You made me see things differently." "That's what happens when you talk to people outside your usual circle," Lena said with a smile. "You get new perspectives." As the clock approached midnight, neither seemed eager to end their conversation. But finally, Lena stood. "I should finish my rounds," she said. "Of course." Asher stood as well. "Lena, I've been thinking, there's a tribute concert at the Blue Room this weekend. For jazz musicians who've passed away in the last decade. Your husband might be honored. Would you want to go?" "With me?" The invitation hung in the air between them, a step across a line they had been carefully maintaining. Lena looked surprised, then thoughtful. As friends," Asher said quickly, though he wasn't sure that was entirely true anymore. "Just to listen to good music and remember." Lena smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I'd like that, Asher. I'd like that very much." As she walked away, Asher felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Not the calculated optimism he showed shareholders or the confident predictions he made in boardrooms. Real hope. The kind that made his heart beat a little faster. Neither of them noticed the figure standing in the shadows at the end of the hallway, Jackson Reed, who had returned to drop off some documents for the morning meeting. He watched the exchange between his best friend and the cleaning woman with narrowed eyes. As Asher returned to his office, a hint of smile on his face, Jackson pulled out his phone and made a call. "Patricia? It's me. I think we have a problem with Asher. A big one." "Jackson." Reed paced the floor of his luxurious penthouse apartment, phone pressed to his ear. "Patricia, you should have seen them. Our friend, the great Asher Kane, making eyes at a cleaning woman. It's like he's lost his mind." His wife, Patricia, seated on their white leather sofa, frowned. "Are you sure you're not overreacting? Maybe they're just friendly." "Friendly?" Jackson scoffed. "The Asher we know doesn't do friendly with the cleaning staff. Something's going on, and the timing couldn't be worse. The Nakamura deal is hanging by a thread, and the board is already nervous about Asher's state of mind since Claire left." "What are you going to do?" Patricia asked, concern evident in her voice. Jackson's expression hardened. "Whatever it takes, to protect Asher from himself and the company." The next morning, Asher arrived at the office feeling more energized than he had in months. The thought of attending the jazz concert with Lena had given him something to look forward to, something personal, not related to business or his broken engagement. "Morning, Meredith," he greeted his assistant with unusual cheerfulness. She looked up in surprise. "Good morning, Mr. Kane. Mr. Reed is waiting in your office. He said it's urgent." Asher's smile faded. Jackson rarely came to his office this early. "Unless there was a problem." "Asher," Jackson stood as he entered. "We need to talk." "About the Nakamura deal?" Asher asked, setting his briefcase down. "About you," Jackson replied. "And your sleeping arrangements." Asher felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "What are you talking about?" "I know you've been sleeping in your office since Claire left." "The security guards talk. The cleaning staff talks." Jackson paused meaningfully. "Especially one member of the cleaning staff, it seems." Asher's jaw tightened. "Have you been spying on me?" "I came by last night to drop off the Nakamura documents. Anne saw you with her." Jackson's tone was accusatory. The cleaning woman, having what looked like a very intimate conversation. "Her name is Lena," Asher said, his voice controlled despite his rising anger. "And who I talk to is my business. Not when it affects the company." Jackson leaned forward. "The board is already concerned about your judgment since Claire left. What do you think they'll say when they hear you're living in your office and getting cozy with the custodial staff?" "They won't hear it unless someone tells them," Asher responded coldly. "People are already talking, Asher." Jackson's tone softened slightly. "Look, I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to protect you. The Nakamura deal is worth billions. We can't afford any distractions or scandals right now." Asher ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "There's no scandal, Jackson. Lena is..." He paused, not sure how to explain what she had become to him. "She's a friend." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "A friend? Do you even hear yourself? CEOs don't befriend cleaning ladies, Asher. It's inappropriate. It blurs the lines." And it makes people question your judgment. I don't care what people think. Well, you should. Jackson stood up. The board meeting is tomorrow. Get your house in order before then. And for God's sake, go home tonight. Sleep in your own bed. After Jackson left, Asher sat at his desk, a storm of emotions churning within him. He knew Jackson was right about one thing. Perception mattered in business. But the thought of ending his conversations with Lena felt like losing something precious. The day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. The Nakamura deal was indeed precarious, requiring all of Asher's focus and skill. By evening, he was mentally exhausted. As 11:42 approached, Asher found himself torn. The rational part of him knew he should leave, go to his empty penthouse, and cut off this unusual friendship before it caused problems. But something stronger kept him rooted in place, waiting. When Lena appeared with her cart, Asher felt an involuntary smile spread across his face. "Tea time," she said, handing him the familiar cup. "Thank you." He hesitated. "Lena, about the concert on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it," she said, her eyes warm. Asher nodded, the words he had planned to say, cancelling their plans, dying on his lips. "Me too." They settled into their usual seats in the break room. Asher noticed Lena seemed particularly tired tonight. "Rough day?" he asked. She sighed. "The diner was short-staffed again. Been on my feet since 5 a.m. "You work too hard," Asher said softly. "Says the man who practically lives in his office," she countered with a smile. Asher chuckled, but his mind was still on Jackson's warning. "Can I ask you something, Lena? Do you ever talk to other employees about just our conversations?" She looked surprised. "Of course not. Why would I?" "No reason," he said quickly. "Just curious." Lena studied him for a moment. "Something's bothering you," Asher hesitated. It was uncanny how easily she could read him when most people saw only what he wanted them to see. "My friend Jackson saw us talking last night," he admitted. "He's concerned about how it might look to the board, a CEO getting friendly with a member of the cleaning staff." "I see," Lena said, her expression unreadable. "And what do you think?" "I think," Asher began, then stopped. What did he think? That these late-night conversations had become the brightest part of his day? That for the first time in months, he felt like himself again? "I think Jackson doesn't understand what these talks mean to me." Lena was quiet for a moment. "And what do they mean to you, Asher?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibilities neither had acknowledged until now. "They mean..." Asher searched for the right words. "Peace, connection, something real in a world that often feels so false." Lena nodded slowly. "I understand, but if these conversations are causing problems for you..." "They're not," Asher interrupted firmly. "And even if they were, I wouldn't want to stop." The sincerity in his voice surprised even him. Lena's eyes softened, and for a moment, Asher thought she might reach for his hand. Instead, she checked her watch. "I should finish my rounds," she said, standing. "The concert starts at 8 on Saturday. I can meet you there." "I'll pick you up," Asher insisted. "Just give me your address." After Lena left, Asher sat alone in the break room, turning their conversation over in his mind. He knew he was at a crossroads. The safe choice would be to distance himself from Lena, focus on the Nakamura deal, and avoid any potential scandals. But, for once in his life, Asher didn't want to make the safe choice. The board meeting the next day was tense. The Nakamura deal dominated the discussion, with several board members expressing concerns about the Japanese company's hesitation. "They're worried about leadership stability," one board member noted pointedly, looking at Asher. "After your broken engagement made headlines, there have been questions about your personal life affecting business." Asher maintained his composure. "My personal life has no bearing on my ability to lead this company. The Nakamura family simply wants better terms. We're negotiating." Jackson cleared his throat. "Perhaps a show of stability would help. The charity gala next week would be a perfect opportunity to demonstrate that you've moved on. Maybe escort someone suitable." The suggestion wasn't subtle. Asher knew exactly what Jackson meant by someone suitable, not Lena Drew. After the meeting, Jackson approached him. "Patricia's sister is in town, Harvard Law graduate on the city. Arts Council. She'd be perfect for the gala." I already have plans for the gala, Asher lied smoothly. With whom? That's my business. Asher gathered his files. The Nakamura deal will go through, Jackson. Trust me to do my job. I always have, Jackson replied, but lately I'm not sure you're thinking clearly. Saturday evening arrived, and Asher found himself standing outside Lena's modest apartment building. He had left his usual luxury car at home and taken a taxi, not wanting to draw attention in her neighborhood. When Lena opened her door, Asher was struck speechless. Gone was the gray uniform and practical bun. Instead, she wore a simple blue dress that brought out the warmth in her eyes, and her brown hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. "You look beautiful," he said honestly. A faint blush colored her cheeks. "Thank you. Come in for a minute while I get my coat." Asher stepped into her small apartment, immediately struck by how much it reflected Lena herself. Modest but warm, with bookshelves lining one wall and old jazz records displayed lovingly on another. Photos of a smiling man holding a saxophone sat on a side table. Her late husband, Asher, assumed. "That's Michael," Lena confirmed, following his gaze. "He would have loved tonight's concert. The Blue Room was like a second home to him." Asher nodded, studying the happy face in the photo. "He looks like he was a good man." "The best," Lena said softly. She picked up her coat, a slightly worn but elegant black wool. "Shall we?" The Blue Room was packed when they arrived. The small jazz club had an intimate atmosphere. Dim lighting, small tables clustered around a central stage, walls lined with photos of musicians who had played there over the decades. Asher felt strangely nervous as they were shown to their table. This wasn't a business dinner or a society event where he knew exactly how to behave. This was something personal, something that mattered. "Are you okay?" Lena asked as they settled in. "Fine," Asher assured her. It's been a while since I've done anything like this." Lena smiled understandingly. "Me too." The lights dimmed further, and the club owner stepped onto the stage. "Welcome to our annual Remembering the Greats night," he announced. "Tonight, we honor those who filled this room with music, but are no longer with us. We remember their spirit, their talent, and their love of jazz." As he began reading names, showing photos of each musician on a screen behind him, Asher noticed Lena tensing beside him. "Michael Drew," the owner announced, "whose saxophone could make you laugh or cry sometimes in the same song. Gone 5 years now, but never forgotten." A photo of Lena's husband appeared on the screen, younger than in the pictures at her apartment. Caught in a moment of pure joy as he played his saxophone, Asher felt Lena's hand trembling slightly on the table. Without thinking, he reached over and covered it with his own. She didn't pull away. The music began, a collection of the city's best jazz musicians playing the signature songs of those being honored. When they reached Michael Drew's piece, a team-up, haunting saxophone solo that filled the room with emotion, Asher saw tears sliding silently down Lena's cheeks. "We can leave if this is too much," he whispered. She shook her head. "No. It's beautiful. It's just, I haven't been here since he died, couldn't face it." "Thank you for coming with me," Asher said, squeezing her hand gently. Lena turned to him, her eyes glistening with tears, but also with something else. Gratitude, perhaps. "Thank you for bringing me. I needed this. To remember him in a place where he was happy." After the concert, they walked along the river, the city lights reflecting on the water. The night was cool but clear, and neither seemed eager to end the evening. "Michael used to say that jazz is like life," Lena said as they leaned against the railing, looking out at the water. "It doesn't always go where you expect, but that's what makes it beautiful." Asher smiled. "Sounds like a wise man." He was. Lena turned to face him. "What about you, Asher? Was your life always so planned?" "Pretty much," he admitted. "My father believed that success came from control and discipline. I never questioned it until Claire left," Lena guessed. Asher nodded. "She threw my whole carefully constructed world into chaos. And then just when I thought I had it under control again." "What?" Lena prompted when he fell silent. Asher looked at her, this woman who had brought warmth back into his life with a simple cup of tea and honest conversation. "Then you started, leaving tea outside my door, and things got complicated again, but in a different way." Lena held his gaze. Different how? Better, Asher said simply. Real. Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been building for weeks. Asher, Lena began hesitantly, whatever this is between us, it's not simple. Our worlds are very different. I know, he agreed. But maybe that's not a bad thing. The sound of laughter from a passing group of people broke the moment. Lena glanced at her watch. It's getting late. I should get home. Early. Shift at the diner tomorrow. Asher nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. Of course, I'll get us a taxi. The ride to Lena's apartment was quiet, both lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Asher walked her to her door. Thank you for tonight, Lena said, keys in hand. It meant a lot to me. To me too, Asher replied honestly. There was an awkward pause. Should he shake her hand? Kiss her cheek? The usual social. Protocols seemed inadequate. Lena solved the dilemma by leaning forward and placing a gentle kiss on his cheek. Good night, Asher, she whispered, before disappearing into her apartment. Asher stood there for a moment, his hand touching the spot where her lips had been. Something had fundamentally changed tonight. He just wasn't sure what it meant yet. Monday. Morning brought an unexpected crisis. Asher arrived at the office to find Jackson waiting for him, a grim expression on his face. The Nakamura family has pulled out of the deal, Jackson announced without preamble. Asher felt like he'd been punched. What? Why? Jackson handed him a tablet. On the screen was a gossip website with the headline, Billionaire Bachelor Moves On with Mystery Woman. Below it was a grainy but recognizable photo of Asher and Lena outside the Blue Room. Who would... Asher began, anger rising. Does it matter? Jackson interrupted. The damage is done. The Nakamuras are extremely traditional. They value stability and proper appearances. This, he jabbed a finger at the photo, looks like a rebound affair with an employee. It makes you look reckless. This is ridiculous, Asher snapped. My private life has nothing to do with business. It does when you're the face of the company, Jackson retorted. The board is calling an emergency meeting for this afternoon. They want answers, Asher. After Jackson left, Asher sank into his chair, fury and frustration warring within him. He had spent months negotiating the Nakamura deal. It would have expanded their Asian market significantly, and now it was gone because someone had photographed him at a jazz club? His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Kane. It's Lena. Someone showed me the article. I'm so sorry. I understand if you need to distance yourself. Asher stared at the message, feeling a strange calm descend. In that moment, something became crystal clear to him. He cared more about Lena's feelings than about the Nakamura deal or the board's opinion. He texted back, "Nothing to be sorry for. We did nothing wrong." The board meeting was every bit as unpleasant as Asher had expected. Several members expressed concern about the company's image and his judgment. Jackson kept shooting him meaningful looks, clearly expecting Asher to promise to end his association with Lena. Instead, Asher stood his ground. My personal life is my own. The Nakamuras overreacted to gossip, which says more about them than about us. We'll find other partners in Asia. This isn't just about the Nakamuras, one board member argued. It's about stability and judgment. First the broken engagement, now this entanglement with an employee. It raises questions. Lena Drew is a good person, Asher said firmly. She works 2 jobs to make ends meet. She brought me tea when I was staying late because she's kind. We attended a jazz concert honoring her late husband. That's hardly scandalous. The room fell silent. It was the most personal Asher had ever been in a board meeting, and everyone seemed unsure how to respond. Finally, the board chairman spoke up. Perhaps we should focus on business solutions rather than Mr. Kane's private matters. What's our next move in Asia without the Nakamuras? Asher seized the opportunity to redirect the conversation, outlining alternative strategies. By the end of the meeting, the immediate crisis had been diffused, but he could tell the issue wasn't forgotten, merely postponed. As he left the boardroom, Jackson caught up to him. You're making a mistake, Asher. This woman, her name is... Lena, Asher interrupted sharply. Fine, Lena, she might be a wonderful person, but she's not from our world. You have nothing in common. What could possibly come of this? Asher considered the question seriously. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I'm not willing to walk away, just because it might be complicated. Jackson shook his head. The charity gala is this weekend. Everyone who matters will be there, including potential new Asian partners. Please tell me you're not planning to bring her. Would it be so terrible if I did? Asher challenged. Yes, Jackson said bluntly. It would confirm every rumor and raise even more questions. At least wait until this blows over. Asher knew Jackson had a point. Bringing Lena to such a high-profile event right now would only intensify the scrutiny, but the thought of attending with someone else felt wrong. I'll go alone, he decided. That night, Asher stayed late at the office, partly from habit and partly hoping to see Lena. But 11:42 came and went with no sign of her. Finally, around midnight, he heard the familiar sound of the cleaning cart. When he stepped into the hallway, he found not Lena, but an older man vacuuming. Excuse me, Asher called out. I'm looking for Lena Drew. She usually works this floor. The man looked up. Ms. Drew switched to the downtown offices, started tonight. Asher felt his heart sink. She had transferred without even telling him. Was she trying to protect him from further scandal? Or was she pulling away because things had become too complicated? Either way, he wasn't willing to let her disappear from his life so easily. The next morning, Asher made a decision. He had spent his entire career calculating risks and making strategic moves. It was time to apply that same decisive approach to his personal life. He called his assistant. Meredith, I need the address of our downtown office building and the cleaning schedule there. Right away, Mr. Kane, she replied, sounding puzzled. May I ask why? I need to speak with someone, Asher said simply. It's important. That night, Asher drove to the downtown office building. According to the schedule Meredith had obtained, Lena would be working the 8th floor around midnight. As he rode the elevator up, Asher realized he hadn't felt this nervous since his first major business presentation 15 years ago. But this mattered more than any deal ever had. When the elevator doors opened on the 8th floor, he saw her immediately, pushing her familiar cart down the empty corridor, her back to him. Lena, he called softly. She turned, surprise, and then confusion crossing her face. Asher, what are you doing here? Looking for you, he said, walking toward her. You switched buildings without saying goodbye, Lena sighed. I thought it would be easier for you with the board and everything. Easier isn't always better, Asher replied. I've missed our talks. Me too, she admitted. But that article, the photos, I don't want to cause problems for you. You're not the problem, Lena. Asher took a deep breath. The problem is that I've spent my whole life playing by rules that other people set. Be successful. Marry the right kind of woman. Care about what people think. And you know what? It never made me happy. Lena watched him, her expression softening. And what would make you happy, Asher? This, he said simply, gesturing between them. Talking with you. Being with someone who sees me. Not just what I represent. Someone who leaves tea outside my... Or because she knows I'm hurting. Lena's eyes glistened with unshed tears. It's not that simple. Our worlds are so different. I don't care, Asher insisted. I care about you. The rest we can figure out together, if you want to. The question hung in the air between them. A possibility, a risk, a hope. Lena stepped closer to him, a small smile playing at her lips. Well, Mr. Kane, I've never been one to back down from a challenge. Asher felt something tight in his chest, loosen at her words. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, Lena reached up and touched his face gently. Then, standing on tiptoe, she kissed him, not on the cheek this time, but softly on the lips. When they broke apart, Asher was smiling like he hadn't smiled in years. I should have looked for you sooner. Better late than never, Lena replied, her eyes twinkling. As they stood together in the empty corridor, Asher knew there would be obstacles ahead. The board would object, Jackson would disapprove, society would whisper. But for the first time in his life, Asher Kane didn't care what anyone else thought. He had found something real in a world of pretense, and he wasn't going to let it go. News traveled fast in the corporate world. By the next morning, rumors were flying through Kane International Holdings that Asher Kane, the untouchable CEO, was involved with a cleaning woman from the downtown offices. Jackson Reed sat in his spacious office, phone pressed to his ear. "Patricia, it's worse than we thought. He went looking for her at midnight in the downtown building." "Are you sure?" his wife asked, concern evident in her voice. "My source in security confirmed it," Jackson replied grimly. "This isn't just a passing fancy. He's serious about her." Patricia sighed. "What are you going to do?" Jackson's expression hardened. "Whatever it takes to protect the company. And Asher, even from himself." Across town, Lena Drew was finishing her morning shift at the diner. As she refilled a customer's coffee cup, her mind drifted to the night before, to Asher standing in that empty hallway, telling her he didn't care what anyone thought, to the kiss they had shared. It felt like a dream, the kind that would evaporate in the harsh light of day. "Lena, phone call for you," the diner manager called out. She wiped her hands on her apron. "Who is it?" "Didn't say. Just asked for you." Line 2. Lena picked up the receiver, expecting it to be about her second job. "This is Lena." "Good morning," Asher's warm voice came through, instantly bringing a smile to her face. "Asher? How did you know where I work?" "I asked around," he admitted. "I hope that's okay." "It's fine," she assured him. "Just unexpected." "I wanted to ask you something," Asher continued. "There's a charity gala this Saturday. It's a big event for the company. Would you go with me?" Lena froze. A charity gala meant high society, wealthy donors, business associates, everything she was not. "Asher, I don't think that's a good idea," she said carefully. "Because of what people might say?" "Partly," she admitted. "But also because I don't belong in that world. I don't have gala dresses or know which fork to use for what," Asher chuckled. "The forks aren't that important. And as for the dress, we can figure that out. I want you there, Lena, as my date." Officially, the word officially hung in the air. This wasn't just an invitation to an event, it was a declaration. "Are you sure?" Lena asked, her voice quiet. "There will be consequences." "I'm sure," Asher replied without hesitation. "The question is, are you willing to brave the lion's den with me?" Lena took a deep breath. She thought about Michael, about what he always used to tell her, life's too short to play it safe. He had lived by those words, taking risks on stage, playing from his heart rather than just the sheet music. "Yes," she said finally. "I'll go with you." "Great," Asher said, the relief evident in his voice. "I'll pick you up at 7 on Saturday." After hanging up, Lena leaned against the wall, her heart racing. What had she just agreed to? Walking into a room full of the city's elite on the arm of Asher Kane? It was madness, but it also felt right in a way nothing had for a very long time. At tea, Kane International Holdings, Asher was in his element. The crisis with the Nakamura deal had forced him to get creative, and he was now pursuing several promising alternatives with companies in Singapore and South Korea. The board seemed cautiously optimistic about these new directions. As Asher left a particularly productive meeting, Jackson fell into step beside him. "Good work in there," Jackson acknowledged. "Seems like you've put the Nakamura setback behind you." "Business moves forward," Asher replied evenly. "We adapt," Jackson nodded. "Speaking of adapting, I've been meaning to talk to you about the gala. Patricia's sister is still in town. She'd be a perfect escort for you, help smooth over the recent disruptions." Asher stopped walking. "I already have a date for the gala, Jackson." Jackson's expression darkened. "Please tell me it's not who I think it is." "Lena Drew," Asher confirmed. "And before you start, my mind is made up." "Have you lost your mind?" Jackson hissed, pulling Asher into an empty conference room. "The board is just starting to trust your judgment again, and now you want to parade your cleaning lady girlfriend at the biggest social event of the year." "Don't call her that," Asher warned, his voice dangerously quiet. "What would you prefer? The woman who mops the floors? The night shift custodian?" Jackson ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Asher, be reasonable. I understand you might have feelings for this woman, but this isn't just about you. It's about the company, about all the people who depend on Kane International's stability." and reputation. I am being reasonable, Asher insisted. I'm living my life on my terms for once, and Lena makes me happy. Happier than I've been in years. Jackson studied his friend. This isn't like you. The Asher Kane I know always puts business first. Maybe it's time for a change, Asher replied simply. The board won't like it. I'll handle the board. Jackson shook his head. You're making a mistake, Asher. One that could cost you everything. Or it could be the best decision I've ever made, Asher countered. Either way, it's my choice to make. As Saturday approached, Lena found herself facing a practical problem. She had nothing appropriate to wear to a charity gala. Her nicest dress was the blue one she had worn to the jazz club, and she knew instinctively it wouldn't be formal enough. On Friday, as she was finishing her shift at the diner, the bell above, the door jingled. Lena looked up to see a stylish woman in her 50s, with short silver hair and kind eyes. We're closing in 10 minutes, Lena informed her. The woman smiled. I'm not here for coffee. I'm looking for Lena Drew. Lena frowned, wiping her hands. On her apron. That's me. Can I help you? My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm Asher Kane's mother. Lena felt her heart skip a beat. Oh, I wasn't expecting. Neither was I until my son called me yesterday, Margaret said with a warm smile. He mentioned you might need some help preparing for tomorrow's gala. Did he send you to give me etiquette lessons? Lena asked, unable to keep a hint of defensiveness from her voice. Margaret laughed. Good heavens, no, those people aren't worth impressing. I came to offer you something else, access to my closet. I have several gowns that might suit you, and we appear to be similar in size. Lena blinked in surprise. You want to lend me a dress? If you'd like, Margaret confirmed. No pressure, but Asher mentioned you were concerned, and I thought I might help. There was something in Margaret's eyes, a kindness, an absence of judgment, that instantly put Lena at ease. That's very generous of you, Lena said sincerely. But why would you help me? You don't even know me. Margaret's expression softened. Because my son hasn't sounded this happy in years, not even with Claire, and I'm curious about the woman who put that warmth back in his voice. 2 hours later, Lena found herself in Margaret Wilson's elegant townhouse, surrounded by more beautiful dresses than she had ever seen in one place. What about this one? Margaret suggested, holding up. A deep emerald gown with simple lines and subtle beading. Lena touched the fabric reverently. That's beautiful, but I couldn't possibly try it on, Margaret encouraged. Humor an old woman. When Lena emerged from the dressing room, Margaret's eyes widened. Perfect, she declared. With your coloring, it's absolutely stunning. Lena turned to look in the full-length mirror and barely recognized herself. The emerald dress fit as if it had been made for her, highlighting her slender figure and bringing out the warm tones in her skin and hair. I can't accept this, Lena protested weakly. It's too much. Nonsense, Margaret replied firmly. It's been sitting in my closet for years. Now it will go to a gala and make my son smile. That's worth more than any dress. As Lena prepared to leave, Margaret took her hands. May I offer one piece of advice, my dear? Lena nodded. Those people tomorrow night, they'll judge you. They'll whisper. They'll try to make you feel small. Margaret's expression was serious. Don't let them. You've already won what matters, Asher's heart. The rest is just noise. Lena squeezed the older woman's hands. Thank you. Not just for the dress, but for understanding. Margaret smiled. I wasn't always Mrs. Wilson, the society matron, you know. I was a receptionist when I met Asher's father. I know what it's like to walk into a room and feel everyone wondering why you're there. Lena's eyes widened in surprise. I had no idea. Most people don't, Margaret said with a wink. That's the secret, Lena. In time, if you act like you belong, everyone else will believe it too. Saturday evening arrived all too quickly. As Lena put the finishing touches on her hair, swept up in an elegant knot that had taken 3 attempts to perfect, she felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. This wasn't just a date. It was Asher making a statement to his entire social circle. A knock at her door announced his arrival. When she opened it, Asher stood there in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking every inch the powerful CEO. For a moment, Lena felt the gulf between their worlds acutely. Then he saw her in the emerald dress, and his expression transformed into one of such pure admiration that all her doubts melted away. "You look incredible," he said softly. Lena smiled. "Your mother has excellent taste." Asher raised an eyebrow. "You met my mother?" "She found me at the diner yesterday," Lena explained. "Arrived with a peace offering in the form of this dress." Asher shook his head, looking both surprised and pleased. "I mentioned your concerns about the gala to her, but I didn't expect her to take matters into her own hands." "I like her," Lena said simply. "She's kind, but she doesn't suffer fools." "That's a perfect description of my mother," Asher agreed with a chuckle. "Ready for this?" Lena took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Riverside Grand Hotel's ballroom was transformed for the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in white linen and adorned with elaborate floral centerpieces. The city's wealthiest and most influential people mingled, glasses of champagne in hand, jewelry glittering in the soft light. As Asher and Lena entered, a noticeable hush fell over the nearest groups of people. Heads turned, whispers began. Lena felt her pulse quicken, but Asher's hand at the small of her back remained steady, grounding her. "Asher, there you are." Jackson approached, a forced smile on his face. Beside him was a stunning blonde woman in her 30s, wearing an expression of polite curiosity. "Jackson," Asher greeted coolly. "This is Lena Drew. Lena, this is Jackson Reed, my business partner, and his wife, Patricia." "Pleasure," Jackson said tightly, not quite meeting Lena's eyes. Patricia, however, surprised them by extending her hand warmly. "It's lovely to meet you, Lena. That color is absolutely stunning on you." "Thank you," Lena replied, grateful for the kindness, even if it might be superficial. More introductions followed, board members, business associates, society figures. Some were openly curious, others barely concealed their disapproval. Lena met each with the same quiet dignity, refusing to be intimidated. "You're handling this beautifully," Asher murmured as they made their way to their table. "I keep reminding myself that their opinions don't define me," Lena replied. "Your mother gave me a pep talk yesterday?" Asher smiled. "Did she now? I should thank her." Dinner was a parade of exquisite dishes served by attentive waitstaff. Lena was seated between Asher and an elderly gentleman who turned out to be a retired judge with a passion for jazz music. Their conversation about the great saxophonists of the past century flowed easily, and Lena found herself relaxing, until she noticed a striking woman in a red dress approaching their table. "Asher," the woman purred, "what a surprise to see you here tonight. I thought for sure you'd still be hiding in your office." Asher's expression remained pleasant, but Lena felt him tense beside her. "Claire," he acknowledged. "I didn't know. You were in town." Claire Beaumont, Asher's ex-fiancée, Lena realized with a jolt. The woman was stunning, with sleek dark hair and the kind of polished beauty that comes from privilege and expensive treatments. "Just flew in yesterday," Claire replied, her gaze shifting to Lena with undisguised curiosity. "And you must be the cleaning lady I've been hearing so much about." The table went silent. Lena felt all eyes on her, waiting for her reaction to the deliberate slight. "My name is Lena Drew," she said calmly. "And yes, I do work in cleaning services, among other things." Claire's perfect smile didn't reach her eyes. "How fascinating." Asher always did have unexpected interests. "Not unexpected," Asher interjected, his voice cool. "Just refined. I've learned to value substance over surface." The barb hit its mark. Claire's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered. "Well, I should get back to my table. Richard is waiting." She gestured toward a distinguished-looking man across the room. "He's running for state senate next year. You should come say hello, Asher, for old times' sake." After she sashayed away, Lena released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I'm sorry about that," Asher said quietly. "Don't be," Lena replied. "If that's the worst confrontation of the evening, I think we're doing well." The evening progressed, with dinner giving way to dancing. The orchestra played a waltz, and Asher stood, extending his hand to Lena. "Would you do me the honor?" he asked. Lena hesitated. "I'm not sure I remember how to waltz." "Just follow my lead," he assured her. On the dance floor, Asher pulled her gently into his arms. As they began to move to the music, Lena was surprised at how naturally it came back to her, the basic steps she had learned in a community college dance class years ago. "You're full of surprises, Ms. Drew," Asher murmured as they glided across the floor. "So are you, Mr. Kane," she replied with a smile. "I didn't expect you to be such a good dancer." "Years of obligatory lessons," he admitted. "This is the first time I've actually enjoyed it." As they danced, Lena was aware of the eyes following them, the whispers behind hands. But here, in Asher's arms, none of it seemed to matter. For these few minutes, they existed in their own world, defined by nothing but the music and the way they moved together. Until Jackson Reed appeared at Asher's shoulder. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation," he said urgently. "The Koreans are having second thoughts." Asher's expression clouded. "What? Why?" "They've heard rumors," Jackson said, glancing meaningfully at Lena. "About instability in leadership. They want reassurance." Asher sighed. "When?" "Now. They're on a conference call in the business suite upstairs. Mr. Park specifically asked for you." Asher turned to Lena, regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry. This is important." "I understand," she assured him. "Go. Do what you need to do." After Asher left with Jackson, Lena made her way to their table, feeling suddenly exposed without him beside her. She noticed the subtle shifts in the room, people who had been polite earlier, now barely acknowledging her presence. "May I join you?" a warm voice asked. Lena looked up to see Margaret Wilson standing there, elegant in a navy blue gown. "Please," Lena said gratefully. Margaret settled into the chair next to her. "I saw my son being pulled away for business. How typical." "It sounded important," Lena said. "Something about Korean investors." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "And Jackson just happened to need Asher right in the middle of your dance." Lena frowned. "You think it was deliberate?" "I've known Jackson Reed for 20 years, Margaret replied. "He's as calculating as they come, always has been, even when he and Asher were in college together." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the dancers. "They'll never accept me, will they?" Lena asked quietly. "These people, this world." Margaret considered her question seriously. "Some will, some won't. The question is whether that matters to you, or to Asher." "I don't want to be a liability to him," Lena admitted. "His business, his reputation, they're important." "So are you," Margaret countered. "I haven't seen my son look at anyone the way he looks at you, not even Claire." Before Lena could respond, she noticed a commotion near the entrance to the ballroom. Asher had returned, but he looked angry. Jackson followed close behind, speaking urgently. As they approached the table, Lena could hear their heated exchange. "You lied to me," Asher was saying. "There was no call from Park. The Koreans are fine." "I needed to speak with you privately," Jackson defended. "You weren't listening to reason." "So you manufactured a crisis?" Asher's voice was cold with fury. "Crossed that line?" "I did what was necessary," Jackson insisted. "The board is concerned, Asher. This relationship is affecting your judgment, your focus. The company needs stability right now, not a CEO distracted by a midlife crisis." Asher's expression hardened. "Watch yourself, Jackson." "No. You need to wake up," Jackson hissed. "You're risking everything we've built for what? A fling with a cleaning lady. Is she really worth your reputation? The respect of your peers? The future of Kane International?" Lena felt her heart constrict painfully. The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because part of her feared they might be true. Was she worth all this trouble? This risk to everything Asher had worked for? "That's enough," Margaret interjected sharply, having overheard as well. "You've said quite enough, Jackson." Jackson had the grace to look embarrassed at being caught speaking so bluntly. "Mrs. Wilson, I apologize for my tone, but I'm only thinking of Asher's best interests, and the company's." "No," Asher contradicted, coldly. "You're thinking of your own interests, and your vision of how things should be. Well, I'm done living by other people's expectations, Jackson. Done pretending to be something I'm not for the sake of appearances." "You don't mean that," Jackson said, lowering his voice. "You've worked too hard, sacrificed too much to throw it all away now." "I'm not throwing anything away," Asher replied. "I'm finally living honestly. and if the board has a problem with that, they're welcome to find a new CEO. A shocked silence followed his words. Even Margaret looked surprised at the declaration. Lena stood slowly. "I think I should go," she said quietly. "Lena, no," Asher began, reaching for her hand. "Please," she said, avoiding his touch. "I need some air, some time to think." Before he could protest further, Lena made her way through the crowded ballroom, toward the exit. She needed space to process what she had just heard. Was Jackson right? Was she nothing but a distraction, a liability to Asher's career and reputation? Outside on the hotel's grand terrace, Lena took a deep breath of the cool night air. The city sprawled before her, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. It was beautiful, but in that moment, she felt utterly alone. He really cares about you. You know. Lena turned to find Claire Beaumont standing a few feet away, a glass of champagne in her perfectly manicured hand. "I'm not in the mood for more insults," Lena said tiredly. Claire shook her head. "No insults, just an observation. I've known Asher for years, and I've never seen him stand up to Jackson like that. Not for anyone, not even for me." Lena studied the other woman cautiously. "Why are you telling me this?" Claire took a sip of her champagne, her expression thoughtful. "Because I walked away from Asher thinking he wasn't capable of that kind of passion, that kind of defiance. I thought he'd always choose the safe path, the expected one." She smiled ruefully. "Apparently I was wrong. He just needed the right reason to fight." "I never asked him to fight," Lena said quietly, "or to risk his company." "That's probably why he's willing to," Claire replied. "The women who demand sacrifices rarely inspire them." She set down her empty glass on a nearby table. "For what it's worth, I think you might be exactly what Asher needs. Someone real in his world of smoke and mirrors." With that surprising endorsement, Claire walked back inside, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts. A few minutes later, Asher joined her on the terrace. "Lena," he said softly, "I've been looking for you." She turned to face him, her heart heavy. "Asher, I don't think this is going to work." "What do you mean?" "Us. This." She gestured vaguely. "Jackson's right. I'm a distraction, a liability to your business, your reputation." "Jackson doesn't get to decide what matters to me," Asher said firmly. "Only I do, and you matter, Lena. More than the company, more than what people think." Lena shook her head. "You say that now, but what about 6 months from now, a year, when the novelty wears off and you're left with the consequences? I don't want you to wake up one day and resent me for costing you everything you've worked for." Asher moved closer, taking her hands in his. "That won't happen." "You can't know that," Lena insisted. "We're from different worlds, Asher. Maybe too different." "Then we'll build our own world," he replied simply. "Together." The conviction in his voice made her pause. "It won't be easy." "The best things rarely are," Asher said with a small smile. "Lena, before you came into my life, I was just going through the motions. Successful, yes, but empty inside. You changed that. You reminded me what it means to really live, to really feel. I'm not willing to go back to that emptiness. Not for Jackson, not for the board, not for anyone." Lena felt tears welling in her eyes. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared that I'm not enough, that I'll never fit into your life." "I already fit into the parts that matter," Asher assured her. "The rest is just details." He cupped her face gently. "I'm falling in love with you, Lena Drew, and that terrifies me more than any business risk ever could. But it's also the most alive I've felt in years." The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Lena felt something shift inside her, a wall crumbling, a fear receding. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me just as much." Asher smiled, relief and joy mixing in his expression. "Then we can be terrified together." As he leaned down to kiss her, Lena knew they were crossing a threshold. There would be challenges ahead, prejudices to face, differences to navigate. But in this moment, with the city lights spread out below them and the stars shining above, none of that seemed to matter. In Asher's arms, Lena felt something she hadn't experienced since Michael died, the sense that she belonged exactly where she was. Inside the ballroom, Jackson Reed watched the couple on the terrace through the large windows. His expression was unreadable as he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "It's me," he said when the call connected. "We need to talk about Asher and his cleaning lady. I think it's time for Plan B." The gala continued around him, laughter and music filling the air, while on the terrace Asher and Lena remained in their own world, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. The Monday morning following the gala, Asher arrived at Kane International Holdings to find his assistant, Meredith, looking unusually anxious. "Mr. Kane, the board has called an emergency meeting," she informed him. 9 o'clock in the main conference room. Asher checked his watch, 8:30. "Any idea what this is about?" Meredith hesitated. "There are rumors, sir, about you and, well, about your personal life." "I see," Asher replied calmly, though internally he was bracing for battle. "Thank you, Meredith." In his office, Asher found a stack of financial reports that needed his review before the Asian markets opened, but his mind kept drifting to Lena and the night of the gala. Despite the confrontation with Jackson, it had ended wonderfully. After their moment on the terrace, they had returned to the ballroom, danced again, and then left early, stopping for ice cream at an all-night diner like teenagers. Lena had been different after their conversation, more relaxed, more confident, as if she had made a decision to stop worrying about what others thought and simply be herself. It was one of the many things Asher admired about her, that quiet strength that ran beneath her gentle exterior. At precisely 9 o'clock, Asher walked into the board meeting. He could feel the tension in the room immediately. Jackson sat at one end of the table, his expression grim. Beside him was Patricia, who avoided meeting Asher's eyes. "Asher, thank you for joining us," the board chairman, Walter Bennett, began formally. "We've called this meeting to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your recent behavior and its impact on the company." "My behavior," Asher repeated, keeping his tone neutral. "Yes," Walter continued. "Specifically, your relationship with an employee, which has now become public knowledge, and your apparent disregard for how this relationship might affect the company's reputation and stability." Asher nodded slowly. "I assume you're referring to Lena Drew." "We are," Walter confirmed. "Jackson has brought to our attention that this involvement has affected your focus and judgment in recent months. The loss of the Nakamura deal is just one example." Asher shot Jackson a cold look. "The Nakamura deal fell through because of leaked photos to the gossip press. I wonder who might have had an interest in making that happen." Jackson straightened in his chair. "Are you accusing me of something, Asher?" "I'm simply pointing out that timing is interesting," Asher replied coolly, "especially given your clear disapproval of my relationship with Lena." Walter cleared his throat. "Regardless of how the information leaked, the fact remains that your personal choices are now affecting the company. Our stock price has dipped 3 points since those photos surfaced." "A temporary fluctuation," Asher countered. "The new Korean negotiations are proceeding well, and the Singapore deal is all but finalized. Both will more than compensate for the Nakamura loss." "Perhaps," another board member interjected, "but there's concern about the future, about your focus and priorities." Asher looked around the table, meeting each person's gaze directly. "Let me be clear. My relationship with Lena Drew is not up for discussion in this room. My personal life is my own. What is open for discussion is my performance as CEO, which remains exemplary by every measurable standard." "Asher," Jackson leaned forward. "No one is questioning your abilities. We're concerned about perception, about stability, especially after everything with Claire." "Ah, so that's it," Asher said, understanding dawning. "You think I'm having some sort of breakdown? First the broken engagement, now a relationship with someone inappropriate. You think I'm unstable?" Walter shifted uncomfortably. "We're simply concerned, Asher. You haven't been yourself lately." "Actually, Walter, I'm more myself than I've been in years," Asher replied firmly. "And if my choices make some of you uncomfortable, that's something you'll need to come to terms with, because I'm not ending my relationship with Lena." A tense silence fell over the room. Finally, Jackson spoke up. "Then perhaps you should consider stepping back temporarily. Take some time off. Clear your head." You'd like that, wouldn't you, Jackson? Asher said quietly. Me out of the way while you guide the board's decisions. Patricia, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke up. That's not fair, Asher. Jackson is thinking of the company, of you. Is he? Asher turned to her. Or is he thinking of himself? Of the power vacuum that would be created if I stepped down? That's enough, Walter interceded. This isn't productive. You're right, Asher agreed, standing up. So let me make this simple. I am the CEO of Kane International Holdings. My personal life is my own business. If the board feels that my performance is lacking, they're welcome to review the quarterly results, the new market expansions, and the rising profit margins. Beyond that, I suggest we focus on business matters in this room. With that, Asher walked out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. As he returned to his office, his phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Thinking of you today. Hope the meeting goes well. Despite the confrontation, Asher smiled. Just a simple message from her could lift his spirits. He texted back, Stormy, but I'm still standing. Dinner tonight? Her reply came quickly. Of course. My place? I make. A mean lasagna. Perfect, he typed. Can't wait. The rest of the day passed in a flurry of work. Asher threw himself into finalizing the Singapore deal, determined to prove to the board, and perhaps to himself, that his personal life wasn't affecting his business acumen. By evening, he was ready for the comfort of Lena's company. Her small apartment, with its bookshelves and jazz records, had begun to feel more like home than his luxurious but sterile penthouse. When Lena opened the door, the warm smell of garlic and tomatoes enveloped him. You weren't kidding about the lasagna, he said, kissing her gently. Family recipe, she replied with a smile. My grandmother was Italian. Come in, it's almost ready. As they sat at her small kitchen table, eating lasagna and sharing a bottle of red wine, Asher recounted the board meeting. They really think I'm having some sort of midlife crisis, he said, shaking his head. As if finding happiness must mean I've lost my mind. Lena's expression was thoughtful. People don't like what they don't understand, and someone like you being with someone like me, it doesn't fit their worldview. Their worldview needs expanding then, Asher said firmly. Lena reached across the table, taking his hand. Are you sure this is worth it? All this conflict, the pressure? Absolutely, Asher said without hesitation. You are worth everything. Lena, I've never been more certain of anything. Her eyes softened. I feel the same way, but I hate being the cause of trouble for you. For you're not the cause, Asher assured her. The cause is other people's narrow-mindedness, their insistence on putting everyone in neat little boxes, CEO with socialite, cleaner with blue-collar worker. Never the twain shall meet. And yet here we are, Lena said with a small smile. Here we are, Asher agreed, squeezing her hand. After dinner, they moved to her small living room. Lena put on one of her late husband's jazz records, and they sat together on the couch, the music washing over them. Michael would have liked you, Lena said suddenly. He always said I deserved someone who could see me. Really see me? Asher pulled her closer. I wish I could have met him, thanked him for being part of what made you who you are. Lena rested her head on his shoulder. Sometimes I feel guilty, she admitted, for being this happy again. Like I'm somehow being disloyal to his memory. Do you think that's what he would want? Asher asked gently. For you to be alone forever? Lena shook her head. No. He made me promise, actually, in the hospital near the end. He said, when you're ready, find someone who makes you laugh, someone who sees your heart. Wise man, Asher said softly. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the soulful saxophone notes filling the room. Move in with me, Asher said suddenly. Lena sat up, looking at him in surprise. What? Move in with me, he repeated. Or I'll move in here, I don't care which. I just want to be with you every day, not just stolen evenings and weekends. Asher, are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure, he said firmly. I love you, Lena. I want to build a life with you. Lena's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, she whispered. But your board already thinks you're having a breakdown. What will they say if we move in together? I don't care what they say, Asher replied. I'm done living for other people's approval." Lena studied his face, searching for any signs of doubt. Finding none, she nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay?" Asher repeated, breaking into a smile. "Yes," Lena confirmed, her own smile growing. "But not your penthouse. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like a home. Like somewhere real people live." "We'll find a new place," Asher agreed immediately. "Something that feels right for both of us." As they sealed the decision with a kiss, Asher felt a sense of rightness settle over him. This was what had been missing from his life. Not professional success or social status, but this simple, profound connection with someone who truly saw him. The next morning, Asher arrived at the office earlier than usual. He had a plan forming. One, that would secure his position at the company, while giving him the freedom to live his life on his own terms. He called his lawyer and his financial advisor, setting up meetings for later that day. Then he began drafting a proposal for the board. Around 10 o'clock, Jackson appeared in his doorway. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "Come in," Asher replied calmly, setting aside his work. Jackson closed the door behind him. "You embarrassed me in front of the board yesterday. You brought my personal life up for discussion without warning me," Asher countered. "What did you expect?" Jackson sighed, dropping into a chair. "I expected you to see reason, to understand what's at stake here." "I understand perfectly," Asher replied. "I just have different priorities than you do." "We've been friends for 20 years, Asher," Jackson said, his tone softening. "I'm trying to protect you. This woman—" "Lena," Asher interrupted. "Her name is Lena, and she makes me happier than I've ever been, including with Claire, whom you approved of wholeheartedly." "Claire made sense," Jackson insisted. "She was from our world. She understood the demands, the expectations." "And she left without a word," Asher reminded him, "while Lena, who has every reason to run from the complications of being with me, has stood firm. Loyalty counts for something, Jackson." Jackson studied him for a long moment. "You really love her, don't you?" "I do," Asher confirmed simply. Jackson shook his head. "I still think you're making a mistake, but it's your mistake to make." He stood to leave, then paused. "The board is reconvening this afternoon. There's talk of asking for your temporary resignation." Asher nodded. "I expected as much. Thank you for the warning." After Jackson left, Asher accelerated his plans. He made several calls, had Meredith reschedule some meetings, and finalized the document he was working on. When the board meeting was called for 3 p.m., Asher was ready. Walter Bennett opened the session grimly. "Asher, after yesterday's discussion, the board has continued to express concerns about your judgment and focus. We believe it might be in everyone's best interest if you took a temporary leave of absence while these personal matters settle down." Asher remained calm. "Before you vote on that, I'd like to present an alternative proposition." He distributed copies of the document he had prepared. "This is a proposal for a restructuring of the executive leadership. Under this plan, I would remain CEO but focus primarily on client relations, strategic development, and international expansion, areas where my strengths and expertise are most valuable." The board members flipped through the pages, expressions ranging from surprise to interest. "Day-to-day operations would be overseen by a chief operating officer," Asher continued. "I'm proposing Jackson for that role, with appropriate compensation adjustments." Jackson's head snapped up, shock evident on his face. "Additionally," Asher went on, "I've included a detailed 5-year growth strategy, complete with projections that have been verified by our financial team this morning. You'll note that it includes the successful completion of both the Singapore and Korean deals, along with a new initiative in the European market that could increase our annual revenue by up to 30%. A murmur ran through the room as the board members examined the projections. "This is quite comprehensive," Walter admitted, clearly surprised. "I've also taken the liberty of transferring 10% of my personal shares in the company to a voting trust," Asher added. "These shares will be voted in accordance with independent assessments of company performance. If key metrics fall below established thresholds, those votes will automatically support new leadership." The room fell silent as the implications of this move sank in. Asher had effectively put a significant portion of his own power on the line, tied directly to his performance as CEO. In other words, he concluded, I'm giving you an objective measure of my leadership, one that transcends personal feelings about my private life. Walter cleared his throat. This is certainly an unexpected proposal, Asher. The board will need time to review it carefully. Of course, Asher agreed smoothly. I'm happy to step out while you discuss it. In the hallway outside, Asher waited, calmly. He was confident in his strategy. By offering Jackson a promotion, one that would give him more power and recognition, he had turned a potential enemy into a stakeholder in his success. By putting his own shares into a performance-based trust, he had demonstrated his commitment to the company's success above his personal control. After 30 minutes, he was called back in. We've reviewed your proposal, Walter announced. And, while we have some questions about specific details, the overall framework appears sound. We'd like to move forward with further discussion rather than the other option we were considering. Asher nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the surge of relief he felt. I'm glad to hear that. I believe this structure will benefit everyone involved, the company, its shareholders, and its leadership team. Jackson caught up with him after the meeting. COO? With a 40% salary increase? He asked, still looking stunned. Why? Because you're good at what you do, Asher replied honestly, and because I'd rather have you working with me than against me. Jackson shook his head. I've never worked against you, Asher. I've always had the company's best interests at heart. As have I, Asher said. We just defined those interests differently. He extended his hand. Partners? After a moment's hesitation, Jackson took it. Partners. But don't think this means I approve of your relationship. I don't need your approval, Asher said mildly. Just your respect for my choices. Jackson nodded reluctantly. I can try to give you that much. That evening, when Asher told Lena about the day's events, she listened with a mixture of pride and concern. You're putting your own shares at risk? She asked. Because of me? Not because of you, Asher corrected gently. Because it's the right thing to do. Because my personal happiness shouldn't come at the expense of the company's success, and I'm confident it won't. This way everyone wins. Lena shook her head in wonder. You're something else, Asher Kane. So I've been told, he replied with a smile, pulling her close. Now, about finding us a new place to live. Over the next few weeks, life fell into a new rhythm. Asher and Lena spent their evenings house hunting, looking for a place that would feel like home to both of them. They finally settled on a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. Not as luxurious as Asher's penthouse, but warm and full of character, with enough space for Lena's books and records, and a small garden that she immediately began planning for, at sea. Work. The restructuring was going smoothly. Jackson seemed to be embracing his new role with enthusiasm, and the Korean deal was finally signed, bringing a wave of positive press that helped erase the memory of the Nakamura setback. Even the board seemed to be coming around, especially as the quarterly results showed stronger performance than projected. Walter Bennett had even invited Asher and Lena to dinner at his home, a clear sign that acceptance, if not outright approval, was growing. One evening in late spring, as they were preparing to move into their new home, Asher found Lena sitting on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by photo albums. Michael's parents sent these, she explained, making room for him beside her. They thought I might want them for the new house. Asher sat down, looking at the photos of a younger Lena with her late husband, holidays, concerts, ordinary moments captured in time. We should display some of these, he said. He was an important part of your life, he still is. Lena looked at him, her eyes soft with emotion. You wouldn't mind having photos of my late husband in our home? Of course not, Asher replied, sincerely. He helped make you who you are, the woman I love. Lena leaned against him, emotion overwhelming her for a moment. I never thought I could be this happy again, she admitted. After he died, I just existed, worked, survived. I never expected to find love like this twice in one lifetime. Neither did I, Asher said, wrapping an arm around her. I thought success was enough. Money, power, respect. Then Claire left, and I realized none of it meant anything without someone to share it with. But even then I was looking in all the wrong places, until you caught me leaving tea outside your door, Lena said with a smile. Until then, Asher agreed, kissing her forehead. Best thing that ever happened to me. The following weekend, they moved into their new home. Asher had insisted on doing it themselves rather than hiring movers, another break from his old life of delegating everything. As they carried boxes and arranged furniture, laughing despite the exhaustion, Asher felt a contentment he had never known before. Here in this house with this woman, he wasn't Asher Kane, CEO of Kane International Holdings. He was just Asher, a man building a life with the person he loved. By evening, they had made enough progress to justify a break. They sat on the floor of their new living room, sharing a pizza and a bottle of wine. We should have a housewarming party, Lena suggested. Invite friends, family. Who do you want to invite? Asher asked. My friend Susan from the diner. Michael's parents, they'd like to see the house, a few others. Lena looked at him. What about you, your mother, of course? Definitely my mother, Asher agreed. She's already planning to redecorate for us, I'm sure. What about Jackson and Patricia? Lena asked carefully. Asher considered it. Things have been better with Jackson lately, more professional, but I'm not sure he's ready for a social event with us. Maybe it would help, Lena suggested. Show him that this is real, that we're not going anywhere. Asher smiled at her wisdom. You might be right. I'll invite them. The housewarming party was scheduled for the following month, giving them time to properly settle in. In the meantime, life continued to evolve in new and wonderful ways. Lena had finally been able to quit her second job at the diner, though she insisted on keeping her cleaning position. I like the work, she explained to Asher. It gives me time to think, to be useful in a tangible way. Asher understood. It was part of her independence, her identity, and he loved her for it. He had changed too. The man who once worked 15-hour days now made it home for dinner most evenings. He had learned to cook, badly at first, but improving with Lena's patient guidance. He had even started playing the piano again, something he hadn't done since college. The night of the housewarming party arrived with perfect early summer weather. Their eclectic mix of guests mingled in the garden. Lena's diner friends chatting with Asher's mother, Michael's parents examining the framed jazz records on the wall, board members from Kane International trying to look comfortable in this unfamiliar setting. To everyone's surprise, Jackson and Patricia had accepted the invitation. They arrived bearing an expensive bottle of champagne and unmistakable curiosity. As Asher made the rounds, ensuring everyone had drinks and food, he watched Lena across the garden. She was talking animatedly with his mother and Walter Bennett, looking completely at ease. There was no trace of the woman who had once been intimidated by the charity gala crowd. She had found her confidence, her place, not by changing who she was, but by being unapologetically herself. Jackson approached him, drink in hand. Nice place, he commented. Different from what I expected. In a good way, I hope, Asher replied. Jackson nodded slowly. It suits you, both of you. Thank you for coming, Asher said sincerely. It means a lot to Lena, and to me. Jackson glanced over at Lena. She's not what I expected either, he admitted. The board was impressed with her at the Phillips meeting last week. Asher raised an eyebrow. You invited her to a business meeting? Walter's idea, Jackson said with a shrug. He thought it would help smooth things over if the board got to know her in a neutral setting. She was impressive, intelligent, dignified, not at all what they were picturing. I could have told them that, Asher said, unable to keep a hint of smugness from his voice. Yes, well, Jackson cleared his throat. I may have been hasty in my judgment. It was as close to an apology as Jackson Reed was likely to give, and Asher accepted it as such. Water under the bridge, he said, clinking his glass against Jackson's. As the evening progressed, Asher found himself standing alone for a moment, observing the gathering. His past and present had come together in this garden, his corporate life, Lena's world, their shared future. It wasn't seamless. There were still awkward moments, cultural disconnects, but it was working. They were making it work. Lena joined him, slipping her arm through his. "Penny for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about how far we've come," Asher replied. "From tea outside my office door to this." Lena smiled. "It's been quite a journey." "And it's just beginning," Asher said, turning to face her. He took both her hands in his. "Lena Drew, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." Her eyes widened as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Around them, the party gradually fell silent as guests noticed what was happening. "I had a whole speech prepared," Asher said with a nervous laugh, "about how you've changed my life, how you've made me happier than I ever thought possible. But looking at you now, the only words that matter are these: I love you, will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a ring, not an ostentatious diamond like the one he had given Claire, but a vintage emerald surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and unique. Tears filled Lena's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Asher slipped the ring onto her finger. Cheers erupted around them. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her as their friends and family applauded. In that perfect moment, Asher knew that all the struggles had been worth it. The board meetings, the gossip, the judgment, none of it mattered compared to this. He had found something real, something true, with the woman who had once left tea outside his door when everyone else had gone home. As they broke apart, smiling, through happy tears, Lena whispered, "Who would have thought? The CEO and the cleaning lady." "No," Asher corrected gently, "just Asher and Lena. Two people who found each other when they needed it most." Around them, their unlikely family came. Together to celebrate, different worlds colliding and creating something new, something beautiful. The evening stretched on, filled with laughter and music and love, and later, when everyone had gone home, Asher and Lena stood in their garden under the stars, still holding on to each other. "Are you happy?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "Completely," she replied without hesitation. "You?" "More than I ever imagined possible," Asher said truthfully. "Who needs perfect when you can have real?" Lena smiled, resting her head against his chest. "Real is pretty perfect if you ask me." As they stood there together, the future stretching out before them bright with promise, Asher silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought them together, a businessman who had lost everything that mattered, and a cleaning woman who had shown him what really counted in life. After everyone else had left, they had found each other, and in doing so, they had found themselves. The end.